had blue hair and shaved bits off and pierced things and all that, and I was a wee bit different from everybody else where I grew up. But I quite liked being that wee bit different from everybody else where I grew up, because they were all wearing flares and leg warmers and had really boring haircuts, in my opinion. But in that whole time, I had the great privilege of listening to some of Jimmy Reid's speeches and some of the absolutely amazing words of wisdom that he gave at the time, and it really formed my opinion about what I wanted for an independent Scotland, what I wanted to see, and that is laced with the hugest, biggest amount of hope you could ever imagine. And you can't imagine, I've got a few colleagues in here, I've seen a number of SNP people here today, I've seen a number of my socialist friends here today, I've seen a number of my Unison friends here today, I've seen a number of my trade unionist friends here today, and I hope when I leave today, I'll leave with more friends than I arrived with. Because that's the whole point about hope. It's the whole point about coming together to actually strive for something better when you leave with more friends than you started with. And I really hope that I become a friend to some people today. But the common weal, what does the common weal say? It's an old Scots phrase. It's a Scots phrase where we look at what makes us collectively wealthier, and that's not about money. That's about values, that's about enriching, that's about how we look after each other. It's about how we want to see a Scotland that actually supports people in their time of need, that educates for young people, that gives them the opportunities for employment, that actually gives us all something to be proud of. And it's something that I'm really, really committed to. The common weal for me is just a culmination of all the values and things that I've learned all through my working life, being a trade unionist, working in social work, being in politics. It's everything that I've ever believed in. The Commonwealth gives me that. There's not every single thing in it that I agree with, and no doubt there'll be many things that you don't agree with my party policy on, but that's fine, because what we do all agree in is we all want a better Scotland, and that's the main point, and that's the thing that really drives me. The UK right now is the fourth most unequal country in the world. That's absolutely abhorrent. That scares me no end. And Iceland this week, Alistair Darling's been slagging them off for a couple of years, Iceland this week overtook the UK in economic growth. But you know what Iceland did? Jailed their bankers and put up their child benefit. And I have to say, what does a common weal mean for you? Does it mean a health service that's free at point of need? Because that's what it means for me. Does it mean that you don't pay for prescriptions, you don't pay for a tax on your ill health? That's what that means for me. That's a common weal for me, where everybody gets treated the same when it comes to their health. Does it mean a free education service? Does it mean the early interventions and the early years strategy that we've got? Does it mean how we equip our young people at primary school and secondary school to be the best they can be? That we don't just equip them to know subjects, but we equip them to know the world, to understand the world, and to give the best they've got back to the world. That's what the common weal means for me. Is it community spirit? I was in Hamilton this morning because I had stuff to do with the community councils on a new programme that they're putting forward. The council's putting forward basically a limit what community councils can do. I've written an objection to that because I think we should expand what community councils are allowed to do, because the community should have a bigger say in how the council run their services, in my opinion. And I'm going back to Hamilton later on. I'm going back to Hamilton later on because there's a Christmas light switch on, and there is no way I'm no going to that and no handing out yes leaflets, I'm sorry. But that's the community support, that's the stuff in the community that we all want. That's the common weal for me. The living wage. My government has said that they have implemented the living wage across the areas that they have control over, and the First Minister has said that we would expect the living wage to be something as a norm in Scotland. I expect that, because the common weal is about a high wage economy. If people are on the living wage, then they don't need to be grovelling for in-work benefits, children's tax credits, or housing benefit that just allows them to pay their rent and no more. People shouldn't be made to scrabble like that. They should be treated well, and they should be given the living wage to do that. Is it apprenticeships for young people? 26,000 apprenticeships every year for the past 4 years, and the same for the next 3 years. I have to say, I'll declare an interest. My son was extremely lucky a few years ago to get one of those apprenticeships. Didn't want to go to university, he wanted a trade, and he's now in his 4th year, and he's doing separately an HND in construction management. He's going to be a joiner. He's really handy to have about the house, by the way. See all the creaky doors and everything that I had? They're all fixed because he's a perfectionist. But he has been so lucky, and I tell him every single day what he's been given, the value of what he's been given is the means to a trade to make his own things and to make his own money and to make his own way in the world. He's so lucky, and so is 26,000 other young people across Scotland this year, next year and the year after. That's the Commonweal to me. And there's a thing in the Scottish DNA about fairness, isn't there? See, when something's no fair, you don't like it. It doesn't matter whether you're a Tory, believe it or not, or a Lib Dem, well, there's only a few of them, right enough, or you're anybody else. See, if something's no fair in Scotland, it's just no fair. And see, when we hear leaders of parties saying that we're a something for nothing society, I'll tell you something, that gets me to stand up and say, shut up, we are not a something for nothing society. I don't believe universalism should be described as something for nothing. Universalism is something we should all strive to have for everyone. Doesn't matter what your race, your religion, your gender, or your economic status. Everybody should be treated the same way at the highest standard possible, and that's what I strive for. Do you know what really sickens me? Is what's going on right now, pitting community against community. Bedroom tax, welfare reform, newspapers screaming about shirkers and strivers, politicians screaming about shirkers and strivers. Damien Grieve, MP, yesterday saying the ethnic minority community is corrupt and it's endemic, the corruption is endemic. This is the man who has been involved in, and I wrote this down, the expenses scandal, cash for honours, Lobbygate, cash for questions. Yeah, we know who the shirkers are. I just wanted to, I was doing a wee bit of research last night because I was looking at other areas in the world who have gained their independence and how they did that, and I looked right back to the American strive for independence and the work that was done then. And everybody quotes Abraham Lincoln, but I don't really look at Abraham Lincoln that often. I look at the likes of John Adams, but not really John Adams, but his wife Abigail Adams. But John Adams made a very, very pertinent quote, and it ties into everything I've just said. And this is it, quote, "It should be your care, therefore, and mine to elevate the minds of our children and exalt their courage, to accelerate and animate their industry and activity, to excite in them a habitual contempt of meanness, abhorrence of injustice and humanity, and an ambition to excel in every capacity, faculty and virtue. If we suffer their minds to grovel and creep in infancy, then they will grovel all their lives." And that was a couple of 100 years ago that was said. But how pertinent is that today? How pertinent is that today? Very pertinent in my mind. And apparently America wouldn't survive without Britain anyway, that's what they told them. We've heard that before, haven't we? We've heard that before. But what is the Commonweal? It's a wealthier people. And I have to say that one of the greatest things about this journey to independence is the idea of having a written constitution and having all of the things that I've just talked about enshrined into that constitution. See, when we look at some of the horrible things that the Project Fear Better Together folk are telling us, I then did go back and look at Abigail Adams, because that's where I started with last night, and she quoted at the time, "I know they, Great Britain, abuse America because they fear her, and every effort to render her unpopular is a proof of it. They go on deceiving themselves, thinking they can keep us low and poor, but all the time they are making us industrious, frugal, wise, and great, I hope." And she went back to hope. And that's what Project Fear were doing during the constitutional change in America, and they're doing the exact same thing now. But I'm sorry, the Constitution for me is a gender issue. It's about giving women those rights there. I think Robin had said to me that I think in Norway the contribution to the economy from women is greater than their contribution to the economy from their oil. Mon the lassies, that's what I say. I can't wait another 40 years. I can't wait another 40 years for equal pay. I can't wait another 40 years for a welfare system that actually takes cognizance of the contribution that our women give to society. And I can't wait another 40 years for an independent Scotland where we can take forward our constitution, our hope. And I can't wait another 40 years for that hope, because I know I'm quite young looking, but I'm not that young looking. But that issue about a written constitution is where we tie our hope onto The Commonweal gives us the blueprint for that. And if we've got hope, we've got nothing, we've got absolutely nothing. And Abigail Adams, in her very first letter to John Adams when he was away writing the Constitution, was, please, sir, give some cognizance to the women of this country, because if you don't, it will be your downfall. So to Abigail Adams and all the other women out there and all the great men that support us, we need that hope, we need your encouragement, and we need your support. And I want and I hope for a free, fair and just independent Scotland, and I wish you all well in your endeavours to do that.